everybody who is here. We appreciate your time. If you don't know me, I'm Kristen Black. I am the Manager of Communications and Human Dimension at the Council, and I have an awesome speaker for you guys today who gave this great presentation at ACI in July, and so we thought that more people needed to be able to hear this presentation and take it to heart. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Orthman from the Professional Outdoor Media Association. And remember that if you have any questions or comments going through here, you can always type in the chat box, and I will relay those to Kevin after he gets done with his presentation. So take it away, Kevin.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I've never done a webinar before, so I am sort of a class clown, so I feed off audiences quite a bit. So if I sound dry or if a joke doesn't hit, blame somebody else. But I'll go through this. My job at Professional Outdoor Media Association is the executive director. We are basically a trade organization for the outdoor media. So we have members from Alaska down to South Africa, all over the nation. We are connected with hundreds of companies and hundreds of communicators via writers, podcasters, photographers, you name it, we have it. We even have a dating app now, which is sort of we didn't know where to put it, but it's a growing market. So I would just like to tell you what we see at 1,000-foot level. And when I spoke at ACI in July, it was interesting talking to all the state organizations. And I'm going to say this, and I'll say at the end as well. We're really here to help communicate what you folks want to talk about. It is our 3 state organizations. I can't emphasize enough that you have to be connected to your local folks. So I'm going to go from there and sort of talk about modern storytelling and leveraging outdoor media. So there's a perception of what we do for a living is hunting and fishing, stereotypes, old and new traditions in the changing world. And I found this next video, and I'm not sure if you can hear the sound, but it was one of the very first things that popped up in YouTube in the archives of the Congressional Library for hunting safety videos. My best guess is from the 1940s or early 50s, and sort of what it was and where it's come from. So I'll let the Field and Stream.
I don't think we're going to have sound on this.
We're not? All right. Well, no. So basically it's a pretty self-explanatory cartoon, but it's fantastic. One of the biggest things we have is obviously the stereotypical dude, and I mean he even says man on it, but that's something we can talk about. Sort of we're silly. This is sort of what we do, where we came from. So he talks even about hunting accidents and the whole 9 yards. And here's another one. So I'm going to go past that, but some of the things that are missing from that video, and the thing that impacted me the most was there's no women, and it's sort of like part of who we are. So, but it's like where we came from. So here's the heritage, right? The Field and Stream. I grew up on this stuff. Most of us did. It was a Christmas for me when this came in the mail. I shamelessly stole them from doctor's offices and dental offices all my life, so I could get the latest copy if I didn't have a subscription. But our foundation is still the same, or that's where it came from. Long form print written word, broadcast options, and small national titles. So it was not uncommon, as you know, not that many years ago, that we had, most small towns or small papers had a outdoor writer, be it hunting, fishing reports, the whole 9 yards. Broadcast options. I mean, after church on Sunday, we got to watch. It was Lone Ranger. And then there was 2 or 3 local places in the Midwest that we would watch, hunting and fishing stuff. They go from there. And then the long form print, what we just talked about with magazines and newspapers. But it's a changing world. So this slide is actually very personal to me. That's my wife, who she runs some communications departments for a car company, and she didn't like guns when we met. In fact, my father-in-law, who's a professor, the first time we met, told me he didn't believe in guns, and my response was, well, they're not ghosts, and I have one in the car, which I don't recommend highly to ever say to any future father-in-law. But she's changed. She is not only enjoying shooting sports, but she's also taken up duck hunting and made my hobby a little bit more expensive than it has been in the past. But the biggest thing she's done is integrated it into what she does for a living. So, like I said, she works for a truck company. She is taking automotive journalists and other journalists and lifestyle people on hunting adventures with her product. So she's taken about 76 out for the very first time, the whole 9 yards, and put them in a duck blind in everywhere, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. So, so it's a changing world. The demographics, the trends for growth, youth, women, locavores, and multicultural. So it's always changing. This is the breakdown right now as if I'm looking at the Google Analytics, is sort of where we're at. But that number for women is growing even for the last 2 or 3 years. And that's impressive to me. And the other thing too is locavores. We hear the thing field the table. We hear quite a bit, and I think that in my humble opinion, we see that more and more. If you're talking about hunting or fishing in your local markets, you have to bring it to the conclusion. If it's catch and release, obviously not, but it has the conclusion that we eat this organic material and organic harvest. And then there's fragmentation. So, like I said, the traditional one, we had 3 or 4 real pillars, what I would call. There's some radio in there, and now we have all kinds of subcategories: fishing, hunting, archery, muzzleloader, rifle, shotgun, instant travel, camping, and glamping, and then all kinds of media options for cable, newspapers, e-news, podcasts, etc. And I'd even go as far, I would even take that hunting down and archery down if you're a traditional bow hunter or a compound bow hunter, or if rifle, are you shooting open? I mean, I just got into an interesting conversation with somebody from out west yesterday about, are you shooting with optics, or are you shooting open sight, and going from there. And the biggest one to me is instant travel. As the millennials come into this world, or even Gen Z, is my son, it's really about the travel. I was told by 2 people recently that basically Instagram is 70% travel based. That's what they're searching for. So it's about the destination and getting out there and doing something. And then media options again on the social media side and the streaming and cable. So, but the origin of the story of social media and hunting. So I always like to talk about, I always wonder if the guys who were the calligraphers back then, the scribes, thought that the printing press was a fad. So I would say the origin of the social media and hunting started a long, long time ago. And it's always changing. It's always morphing into something new. And the biggest thing is this: shift to visual media. So I know some of you work for departments, some of you work for R3, but the biggest thing is shift to visual media. Short form. When I say short form video, if you go to an app called Mossy Oak Go, they have all their videos there, but they're interested in some of the short stuff that only plays for 2 or 3 minutes. Think YouTube. I've even talked to an agency, Zimmerman, about what they consider short form now, and they are starting to lean towards 1-second clips, or that's what they consider a short form. But then the other thing is high-packed visuals. I've had an opportunity at ACI to talk to some of these people and look at all the magazines and the websites they do, and they're amazing. But you have to make sure you have high-packed visuals and really high-quality photos. you're competing against not only corporations, but you're also competing against Instagram folks and the other magazines too. And these are not, it used to be you had to be professional. There's a lot of options you can do there, and you can go forward. And then the video. Nothing gets viewed more than a video. We have one on our Facebook page that has been viewed over 600,000 times since last Christmas. And it's about butchering or field dressing an antelope. And then the behind the scenes, I know this sounds crazy, but everybody, some of the best stuff that plays, and I've talked to influencers and companies, is they love to see the behind the scenes shot. Just like that person taking a picture of that moose, how to pack a bag. One of my favorite photographers jokes around that he takes incredible photos that end up on billboards and displays, and the one that gets the most likes or most follows and questions and interaction with him is how he packs his long underwear into a bag to go to Alaska. And he's like, I spent 30 years and this is what I get. So how to. This is an interesting, so as we get new generations, we talk about traditions, and you'll hear me say this a couple times. Tradition is really not about worshiping the ashes, it's about tending the flame. So, but the how-to stuff, some of these flames just started. So there's a gentleman named Sam Ayers, who does country living in the city. He's out of LA. He started hunting and fishing in his 30s, has no history in his family. So his tradition started, 4 years ago. But he asks a lot of how do we do this? How do that simple block and tackle kind of works. So that stuff is always incredible. And encompassing the venture is just not the outcome. And I think that's what we talked about already into this. Oops. So, and then you can read along with this. It's just impactful to me. So that's really amazing to me that, I grew up, I'm a 40-something guy, and I do remember when email just came out, and, it just, how fast this information is consumed. So it's just amazing. And then I talk about there's no magic bullet. So we talk about a lot of programs like, do I only do Instagram, or do I only do Facebook, or do I only do YouTube? If I get shadow banned on YouTube, how do I get out of YouTube? This is just a snapshot of our good friend, Ryan Grisham, and his dad sits on our board of directors, and this is just a snapshot of what he does. So there's really no magic bullet. So Gun Talk Media, 6 million enthusiasts, but he has a radio, podcast, Amazon and Apple TV, Roku, and then the Gun Dealio app, which is sort of a driver sales side. So don't think this is, you have to have multiple platforms to communicate, and they should be somehow tied together and driven back to whatever your source. So if you have a blog or an R3 Summit or R3 whatever that is, that social media should want me to drive through to the end product. And I did this at ACI too, and I stand by this. The department, Montana's DNR, Natural Resources, does an incredible job with this. I actually subscribe to their magazine because of their social media and how it drives me back when it wants me to talk about it. And I don't even hunt or fish in Montana. And this comes back to the other thing. If it isn't on social media, it didn't happen. Integrate marketing strategy with upcycling content. So whatever you're doing has to be everywhere at all times. You have to have a presence, because if you talk to someone who's a little older, he's going to look online, he's going to type in www.r3, Council and go from there. But if you say something to a 20-year-old or a 16-year-old, he or she are going to look only on Instagram. My son's 14 years old, and basically the days of passing notes or looking up, all they do is they DM each other any information they find all day long. And sometimes they don't even talk to each other, but that's a whole different topic. So this is the other thing. So some of you use Facebook. I have all kinds of views on Facebook, but they don't necessarily like the hunting and fishing community. That's very well documented. And but this is something in 2011, 26% of your Facebook business page was organically reached. Today, it's about 1%, maybe 1.5. So what that means is if you're not putting any money behind any, that's really what it's really a sales program, what they have now. I assume I have a lot of questions about that. And then the new Facebook is Instagram. 60% is 18 to 29-year-olds, 72% of 13 to 17-year-olds use Instagram. Users spend 53 minutes on there per day on Instagram, which is amazing to me, an hour, and I bet there's more. I also, if you're not following a newsletter called later.com, I recommend highly subscribing to it. It is a trend setter. They give you trends, I think it's every 2 or 3 weeks, what's happening on the social media platforms. And I was dumbfounded and sort of excited for our world is, so in 2011, $1.6 billion, 2016, $1.6 billion were purchased for influencers to do it, and they expected by 2020 to be at almost $9 billion. That's with a B, marketplace for influencers. So, and paid advertisers. So it's interesting. But then the biggest thing for me is 77% of the followers will buy from the brand they follow on social over one they don't. I don't know about you, but I've bought some really stupid stuff on Instagram. A lot of times for Christmas, sales. Nike is very good at it, but you push through their ads and you can buy right online. So, and then the post received and the video is important, more engagement than over images. The other part I'm leaving out of here is stories, and those have changed just recently. Unfortunately, the API is locked down for Facebook and Instagram, but the stories are an incredible way to push back to what you're going to do. So there should be a correlation between those, and viewership on those are pretty high. And then there's also apps like Go Wild. Go Wild's based out of Louisville, Kentucky. They're good friends of mine. They're integrated with Garmin technology, so you can feel your heartbeat, my heartbeat on your phone, which is a little creepy, but it's basically Instagram active users for hunter and fishermen. But the biggest thing for me is it's young, interactive people, and this still goes out. I did this at ACI, but if you're listening and you have more information, obviously you can ask one of us. But state agencies or R3 people can Go Wild accounts and receive free upgraded reach and profile design from Go Wild, and that's from the CEO. He's a good dude. That service is usually $5,000 to $15,000, but he believes in the R3 mission pretty strong. In fact, that's how I got introduced to R3, was through Brad Luttrell. So it's a great app, easy to use, very interactive. They have some cool upgrades lately, so there's my advertisement for them. But please reach out to them and get some help. Or if you have any questions, let me know. And then podcasting. If you're not doing podcasts, or you're not getting on a podcast right now, find somebody who will put you on one. The SEO grab is amazing. For all the articles I've been in and stuff, I did one with Restless Native, and that's the first thing that pops up in my Google search. And it's a great way to communicate with your audience, using the communication sites, repeat touch points of your audience, and long-form content. So we went from, we have to have 1-second ads to, short films to, and then we're sitting a podcast, and the guys will say, well, 2.5, 3 hours is fine. In fact, more is even better, which is fascinating. But learning the demographics, an hour, at least an hour and a half is not uncommon. But if you can touch on that stuff, that's incredible. And if you want to listen to a podcast of me ramble on for 3 hours, you're more welcome to listen. We talk about all kinds of stupid stuff. So Instagram business activity reports, but it has to be a strategy, and I can't stress this enough. Use Instagram analytics and post the best times. Use social listening. Work smarter, not harder. And then the video. Advocate dedicated resource paid social campaigns. So if you have something very important, there's nothing wrong with throwing a little money at it. You can actually throw a lot of money at it. But the biggest thing is make sure you're listening to what your audience can do, and that's mostly with Google Trends. This is free. It's a free insight. There are programs out there, Meltwater, there's a Slack will do this as well, but I don't know what kind of budgets everybody's working with, but this is one that's easy to do, and you can actually narrow it down. So the stuff is, arising. So this is at the time when I did this in July. Fishing Day 2019 was the number one, and then the biggest one for me is Red Dead Redemption 2. Hunting deer, hunting season, and go from there. There's a video here. I don't know if you have young kids or know of any. Red Dead Redemption 2 was the number one selling game in 2019. Hunting and fishing is almost a part of the game that you can't get around.
And not even just young kids.
No. So, but I want to talk to you about this. So my son, like I said, my son is 14 years old when this came out. One of the kids ran downstairs from the game room and said, Mr. Orthman, how do you shoot a buffalo? And I was like, well, you have to go out west. And, you answer the question. He's like, okay. So another one comes down and says, where do you shoot a deer? I'm like, okay, what do you mean? And he's like, what part of the body? And I'm like, okay, what the heck is happening upstairs in my house? So I went upstairs and we talked. So they skin the animal, you eat the meat, you sell the hide, you use the other parts of the animal for decorations of your camp. But it really opened some interesting conversations with the kids. Some of them didn't want to hunt, which is fine, but the others, most of them said, well, can you take me fishing? Yeah, absolutely. Let me talk to your parents. So I've taken 3 or 4 kids out. In fact, my son now has it's a golf course fishing team, which local golf courses here actually have tournaments, so which is pretty cool. And then Twitch streaming is this thing boggles my mind as well. And again, not something right now. It's video games, but this is what these kids are watching, and the young generation are watching. And then there's premium coffee table magazines. Those still sell. There's the Huntsman. There's others out there, and I had visual aids for this presentation. So, but these really high-end magazines that sort of sit. There's still places for that too. And then apps like Mossio Go. And then when I talk about be present, this is sort of a little, all right. Give me another minute and just read along here and make sure you're understanding what's happening and how to communicate. So Axe put this thing together called Instagrooms, but it's how to communicate to men in this market. So I do like in my professional life to watch what other industries or fractions of industries are doing. You know, a good piece of work is always stolen from somebody else and let them do the work. So that's what the presentation's about. And then I'm going to come back to this as well. Is like I said at the beginning, how POMA can help. We have hundreds of folks at Professional Outdoor Media Association that would love to. They're always hungry for story ideas, always looking for something to talk about, always there to help what I would call traditional hunting and fishing stories out in the real world, and even some of the environmental stuff. Clean Water Act. Sugar, you know, the stuff down in Florida was always a hot topic with the red tide last year. They're always here to help, and you guys should, it should be part of your strategy to make sure you have a few that you can engage. Because sometimes when it comes from someone from the department or somebody with a title that's saying it, they don't believe it, but if you have another advocate or a witness, then they always keep up. It gives a little bit more credence. And then keep up with trends as much as you can. There's incredible places out there, and then network resourcing. So it's amazing. I came from a different industry before this, and we were not friendly with each other, meaning the industry was not collaborative in any way. I'm always amazed that the outdoor industry is so collaborative. You have a fishing company that's working on something, and a boat company will jump on board and throw some more money in it. So don't feel like you can't ask for help. Always try to be creative. And then, use POMA as your resource. Leverage the network, photographers, your image call list, meet with established relationships with vetted influencers, push content through our network outlets, and we'll go from there. This is our shameless plug at the end because it's still my job. But this was last year in Wichita, Kansas. We had a great time with some little highlight reel. And some of the companies we work with.
And there's cool music and stuff in the background of this video if you want to check it out later and see how it all got put together.
Really and I have no problem. So this year it's in Nashville, Tennessee, or actually Franklin, Tennessee in June. I'd invite everybody who's on this call. You're more than welcome to join us. We have a lot of cool stuff happening. In fact, I'm in the planning session tonight with the shooting range. So it's a great opportunity to come out and get as much as you can and meet some cool folks. That's Sam, by the way, if you're looking for his stuff. So that's us in a nutshell. I don't usually do this on a webinar, so hopefully you found it interesting. I saw a couple things pop up, so I think I have some questions.
You do. So my question is, what are the best social media platforms or apps that we should be engaging on as companies or agencies to get people knowledgeable and involved with our programs or just knowing who we are?
Obviously, in my humble opinion, Instagram is a low-hanging fruit. And tell the adventure. Everybody in your org, I said this at ACI too. So I have, if you do follow me on Instagram, it's POMA HQ, and my personal one is KLO219. But I also have 2 of them. So like Facebook, I have 2. So there's no reason anybody in my industry needs, on my Facebook page, needs, I have one for my family, like my crazy cousins and my, all this silly stuff from college. That's my private life, but I'm a channel for the outdoors. So everybody, in my opinion, has to have a channel just for them. And if you don't want them to know about, your kids, like I try to keep my son off the stuff on Instagram. But that's my personal preference. But I have a POMA page, I have a personal page, and I push out. That would be the easiest go. The next one I would do is Facebook's not dead. It just has to be, you have to tell your story in a very organic way, and also have it interacted with, and that's tough. But then the other one, is Go Wild is an incredible app. I sit at a cool place where I get to see companies come, and some of them go the last couple of years, and it's always amazing to see what Go Wild's pushing out and getting it really done. Those are the stuff I would talk about.
Great, thank you. And then Sam has a question, and I think this is interesting coming from the council, because the council did have a podcast, and we kind of let it flop just to put effort into other things that may be more lucrative. So Sam wants to know if it's better to have our own podcast or to get on other people's podcasts. And Kevin Paulson replied both. And I think there's some merit to that. But should we just be playing to our strengths, or should we just be going all out in all manners?
Podcasts are an interesting thing to me, and I've kicked around doing one for POMA as well. We could do a business side, and I think that's something we should do in the future. But the reality is this: I think you should do both, but have a consistent and realistic expectation. The ones that talk to is, they've come out and they go, oh, we're going to do one once a week. That's a lot of work. So if your bandwidth is enough to do that, fine, good at you. But the other thing too is make sure you have good sound and good music, or whatever you need to do to make it right. To do it right the first way. The other thing I would like to hear personally, and this is a very personal note, is I'm going to hunt in Missouri next week. I would love to have a really micro podcast about what to expect in Missouri, almost like the old radio stations. So that's not a bad idea. And then the other thing I would do is make sure you cross-pollinate. I think Kevin Paulson's right. If I had a podcast, I'd put Paulson on it. And if he had a podcast, I'm not shy about saying, hey, I need to be on your podcast. How can we do a swap as a guest? And if you listen to Joe Rogan and some of the other bigger ones, that's what they do. They cross-pollinate all the time, and that's how that network is big. So selfishly, I think there should be more hunting and fishing stuff out there everywhere. I'm still looking for one that just tells me how to cook really good game. And I know meat eaters out there, and hats off to them. But I just want really consistent. There's my podcast idea, and they're not that expensive to do. A Zoom 6, a recorder is about $350. A really good headset's about $200 if you get a new. So there's not a ton of tech you're throwing in there. It's just time and passion.
Yeah, good tips. So what is the best way that you see maybe agency or industry getting involved with COMA? Where do they fit in?
Well, they fit in a couple things. I want them just to participate. So there's 2 things. Is they participate as being members of our organization. They can put out all their press releases and stuff through our networks, and we do that. It's free. It's we have actually a pretty big distribution list. And then the other way to reach out is if you're part of it, if you have something special. I don't know what that is, if it's an alert or media alert. We do have a couple organizations. Tennessee is one of our members, and I don't know if is Jennifer on here or not. But they've put out a couple of media alerts about an elk tag they were raffling off to CWD articles she's looking to have somebody write for, and that's how that's how you interact with POMA.
Okay.
The best of it, if that makes sense. And individually, I would love to talk to anybody who would like to, get involved.
Yeah, that's great. And I will share your contact information, just your email, with them in a follow-up letter, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And Sam has another question. She wants to know what are the words you describe or you use to describe the R3 industry to industry partners. So if some of your partners are kind of skeptical on the whole R3 thing, how do you relate to them if it's important? What do you say?
Oh, it's something. It's not. I don't know if I use the words. It's unnecessary that we're supposed to do. Like I said, we're supposed to tend to the flame. So I think there's a stewardship of everybody who's listening. Obviously, they have some kind of interest in this industry. There's a stewardship of the land and the wildlife we have. The North American hunting and fishing model is one of the best in the world. Something I hold very sacred. But we don't talk about it enough, in my humble opinion. It's awesome, the fact that we have deer and turkey and everything around. I mean, I still remember my father would stop at the car before we go to church if we saw geese, and everybody would get out of the car. That was before camera phones, so I assume we would take pictures then. But now, all he can do is he can't get enough dogs to run him off his property. So, which is a great conservation story. So the R3 thing is something we need to do. Invite. Not only it's our job, but invite them in. And that's what we're here to do, is reactivate and recruit. And then there's another R in there that Sam's laughing at, and I just totally forgot. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have any last and parting words for us before we wrap up here?
No. I can't stress enough. We're here to help. POMA is such a unique, diverse group of people. We're here to help, and there's not very many of any of them that'll help a hand or a push. So if you need help, reach out. I'd love to have you as a member, but I also would like to have you participate somewhere or another and make sure we're getting all the messages out there for your individual needs. Perfect.
Thanks. And we have one more question I'm going to squeeze in. Eddie wants to know, what about TikTok? And I'll add Snapchat onto that. These are just a couple new video type apps.
Eddie, I'm a 40-something dude. I've been starting reading about TikTok just recently. I don't know. That's a good question. I wish I had all the answers. The viewership is massive. I always thought it was a singing app, but it's turned into some other things for other people. So I mean, if there's an audience you can find there, and Snapchat would be the same way. This is very personal. I find Snapchat to be a little clumsy to use, but again, the censorship issue doesn't seem to be as much as an issue. I would even go as far as, I know one of the ACI members did a live duck hunt, and there was a couple people looking to do something on Twitch this year. To do a live stream for a duck hunt or a fishing something. So I mean, I'm in the world of tight budgets as well, and if you can find the audience, or just say, hey man, we're going to give it a try. What's beautiful about the digital world, it's not going to ruin anybody's. You gave it a college try and figure it out. But if you do have success, Eddie, I'm sorry, I don't know you, Eddie, but I would like to meet you, because I'd love to hear what your success rate on TikTok is, because I'll start a POMA TikTok channel in a second. I can sing some bad Sinatra.
Eddie's in Virginia, so maybe we can follow up with him about TikTok. I don't know.
I will. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, great. We'll go ahead and wrap up. So thank you, Kevin, so much for being here and spreading your cheerful voice with us. And if you guys don't mind, go ahead and take the survey. I just put the link in the chat box. Let us know what you thought, if you have ideas for future webinars or anything that you would like to see in the future. It really helps me coordinate those and get you guys what you want and need. So go ahead and take that survey. I'll follow up with you with Kevin's contact information, and we will sign off. Thank you, Kevin.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having us, and I hopefully see you guys soon on the road. If you're going to be at SHOT Show, we'll have a press conference, some other stuff coming up, so stop by and say hello. I'd love to meet everybody in person.
Awesome. Thanks. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you.